would keep me waiting, I would wait a lifetime. In tricky situations, I will be a lifeline. Nobody's meant to be fighting alone. That's why I'm taking you home. I never felt something like this before, I know. Keep coming back for your time after time. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but I know I'll never leave you behind, no. Baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. Ocean in between us, still I feel your heartbeat. There's something about you, baby, that makes me feel complete. Nobody's meant to be fighting alone. That's why I'm taking you home. I never felt something like this before, I know. Keep coming back for your time after time. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but I know I'll never leave you behind, no. Baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. And the world is going wild when they call for you. And the river's running dry when it all falls through. Don't you worry about a thing, baby, I got you. Yeah, baby, I got you.
Thank you so much for being patient with me. This was a very big story, and I did not want to do it, half-assed and tired. So I decided to give it another day. I do have Lightside joining me today, and we are going to get into it because there is a lot to get through. I've actually only read about 3 sections of this, so some of this is going to be new even to me. And yeah, we are in for a long show today. So please do grab your popcorn, Lightside, say hey, hey.
Hey everyone. Hope you all are
Thank you
having a good day.
Thank you so much for joining me. Um, just before we do start, I am indeed in my new apartment. So if the internet starts to get shaky, please do let me know because I don't know how this is going to go. Even just starting the podcast, I could see it getting a little bit shaky. So yeah, just let me know how it is if it starts to get too bad. But if we manage to get it through today without too many issues, then I know that the internet's going to be okay. And with that, let's get into it. Guys, Lightside has been doing the Lord's work. She sent me a whole Word document, breaking down with cross references and what was in the Byline Times and what was in Harry Spare and all the articles that were posted by Dan Wooten. So she has been doing the absolute Lord's work. So she's going to jump in as I read through the Byline exclusive. But I also just want to say this before we do get into it. I think I'm not so overly shocked in terms of like what's come out is new. I think it's more that when you are in a fandom, um it can be very easy to just like have tunnel vision, and obviously you recognize that because these are two people that you like, you have a certain bias. So I think what's really hit me about what Byline has brought out is not that it's new, but it's a third party who have no real interest in protecting Harry and Meghan that are verifying what Tina and Michelle suspected and put out back in those early days of Sussex Squad before anybody else did, and what I think many of us have had a feeling about for so long. This isn't just us being crazy stans and fans. Now this is very, very real. This is a third party who has verified this. It's not just us having tunnel vision and bias. So that's what's really I think hit me about all of this. Thank you so much, Lottie, for the super sticker. Much appreciated. And yes, Byline are now out not just in online, but also in print. Going out to all over 1,500 outlets in the UK today. And you can buy a physical copy of this. I think you can also buy the physical copy online. And make sure you buy a copy for you, buy a copy for a friend, and thank you everyone in the Sussex Squad who donated to Byline's fundraiser. That they've gotten a lot of money from us, and spreading awareness. And this is the result: an actual print mag. And this could actually be the beginning of something revolutionary for press in the UK. It's been a long time. I don't think I've actually ever seen an independent news outlet get support like this. Could print be back, and in the most incredible way? But let's get into it, shall we? Lightside, is there anything you want to say before I start the reading?
No, let's dive in. Tiny thing is that I hope it's not just for the UK. I hope it's for the States. I hope it's for Australia and just all across the board, because I think a lot of us realize there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation everywhere. So, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, let's get to it. Lightside, they're loving your voice. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much also, everyone, for confirming that the sound is okay. Tiger Hubby said, it's one thing to think that some people are bad, but to have it confirmed as even worse is shocking and sickening to me, indeed. Right, the truth about Megxit, how Dan Wooten and a cash for leak scandal split the royal family. As Scotland Yard probes the journalist Dan Wooten over allegations of blackmail and serial sexual catfishing after a 3-year special investigation by Byline, the newspaper can now reveal how his payments to the partner of a top royal aide forced the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to run from the UK, sending shockwaves through the monarchy, by Dan Evans and Ton Latchan. So, King Charles withdrew his £700,000 funding deal for son Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's transition into a life in Canada in retaliation for the naming of a top royal aide in legal papers, alleging a cash for leaks arrangement with the journalist Dan Wooten, Byline Times can reveal. And that top royal aide, of course, being Christian Jones. The financial sanction came after the Duke of Sussex defied the demands of the then Prince of Wales and palace staff by declining to remove the name of former Kensington Palace press secretary Christian Jones from a letter before action to Wooten's former employer, the Sun in May 2020. Jones denies any suggestion of such wrongdoing or leaking of confidential information about the royal household. The matters alleged in the letter before action about him appear to be dropped by the sudden departure of the Sussexes. Right, and Christian Jones, let me just grab this picture here. Where is it now? Okay, so this is Christian Jones. And in the middle here, you can see a picture of Christian Jones with Meghan. And this was one of the few times that Meghan was tapped while out and about in the UK. And who is she with? She's with Christian Jones. So he obviously had leaked the lunch and their location. And to think that Charles actually pulled funding to protect one of William's aides. What is it that Dan Wooten has on this guy and has on William that Charles would be willing to throw Harry and Meghan and their children under the bus? And Christian Jones has that look that Dan Wooten, aka Martin Branning, likes. It fits his type. So did he not only take money, did Dan blackmail him, his partner, or his boss? It definitely raises some questions. Light side?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I didn't even think about the fact that this could be Wooten's type. I don't pay a lot of attention to that piece. So nice little detail there. But yeah, the question that you asked just now is why put so much energy in protecting an aide over your
Yeah.
daughter-in-law and your son, right? Why? And I think we as a collective, as you said, that we live in a silo in the sense that we are supporters of Harry and Meghan. There are things that are very obvious to us because we've been keeping tabs on everything. But for people who aren't keeping up with the stories, sometimes this stuff is shocking. And I would have to say that what the job that Byline Times has done, and as you know, I'm cross-checking stuff. Like it's given me chills because for a third party paper and publication to do something like this, I don't know what other evidence you need than to say, wait, let's take a step back and really look at this.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, you've done such an incredible job of cross-checking, and please do feel free to jump in at any time when you feel it's necessary. So,
Absolutely.
on to the next part of the article. The Sarandon Agreement collapsed, governing a 12-month trial period as the couple sought to split their time between the UK and Canada and remove themselves from the royal rota. The press Paul given exclusive inside access to cover the royals. It came just 3 months into the trial period and led directly to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex having to enter into private commercial arrangements in the US to pay the estimated 3 million a year cost of 24-hour security for their family. 3 million a year. That is an insane amount of money to have to spend just on your security. And when you think about the fact that much of the security risk came because of the press campaign and the smear campaign against the Sussexes, to the point where you now have someone in jail for calling Prince Harry a race traitor. That's how extreme it got. And then you then had another former commissioner of the Met coming out and confirming that the risk level was incredibly high of that of the Queen and the Prime Minister. But you've had all of this ridicule about Harry and Meghan taking commercial deals, taking money from Netflix, taking money from Spotify. Well, what are they meant to do? At the end of the day, if you as a country say that we are going to have this hereditary monarchy, you can't just suddenly change the rules because the biracial duchess comes into the family. If you say that you're going to have a royal family, you pay for it. Unless you just want to abolish the monarchy, because you can't have one rule for one and a different rule for somebody else in the family. The article goes on to say one well placed source with knowledge of the matter told Byline Times they threatened the removal of the funding to try and protect the royal household from a potential courtroom scandal with Jones and Wooten very publicly at the centre. The actual removal of the funding weeks later was about control and designed to force Harry and Meghan to come back to the senior royal family in the UK where the security would be assured. The source added, the greater truth is that Meghan make better headlines than the King and Camilla or William and Kate. The idea of them still being in public service but abroad and out of control of the institution and dominating the media narrative just couldn't happen. Senior members of the family wanted them back after the transition period and were ready to continue playing dirty to make this happen. They never thought the trial period would work and tried everything to make it fail, starting with the removal of the security and then signing off a 12-month assault by the UK press on Harry and Meghan and everyone in their orbit. And this is why they went after everyone, not just the friends and family. They went after charities. They went after, other professionals in the showbiz industry. You had companies having to shut down their social media pages. It was online, it was offline, just going after everyone who wanted to associate with the Sussexes, and to now know that that was actually signed off. So as far as the institution of the monarchy went, the Sussexes had either to be safely in the tent in Britain or cast away and castigated as comprehensively as possible in order to reduce the threat of them eclipsing the rest of the family. It's no surprise they have endured such a degrading time from such a willing British media when the same just isn't true anywhere else in the world. Yes. Okay, so it goes on to the telling detail. As part of a 3-year special investigation into the professional and personal conduct of Dan Wooten, Byline Times has spoken to several sources with connections to the royal households about how the partner of Christian Jones, a publicist, came to be paid £4,000 by Rupert Murdoch's son in August 2019, allegedly for articles relating to the Sussexes. And here are some of the potential articles that those could be. And what's even more insane about this is £4,000. That's like just probably above the average wage in London. And these are people that like to live champagne lifestyles and flex like they're living champagne lifestyles. £4,000 for one story. I mean, the devil is getting a great bargain. And then you've got Victoria Arbiter, who took, what was it, £300 for that prank and lost her eyelashes. This is how little these people are willing to take to sell their souls and throw other people under the bus. I mean, the Rupert Murdoch Corporation is worth hundreds of millions, or quickly dwindling, but it's worth a lot. If you're going to sell your soul, wouldn't you ask for a little bit more?
Yep, I agree. So it's interesting because they talk about this £4,000 payment, right? But we know now, after going through the article, that there were multiple other payments. These are the ones that they can probably line up at this point. I think there was another one for £1,000. There was one for £3,000. Maybe collectively it was 4,000, but there were other payments. And what I also noted was that it wasn't normally when you do bad dealings with people that are criminal, they're not the smartest. So you see like even payments coming in. They say always look for a straight $100, $200 payment, a clean $1,000 payment. Those are sus. But what you're seeing is maybe it's £1,000 here, maybe it's £4,000 there. It's a little harder to kind of see patterns of that coming in. The other thing is, so what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Wooten was the one like in the mix of all this, exchanging funds, right? Where was he getting that money?
He was getting it from the son's coffers.
Exactly. So, because he can't afford that. So someone else was supporting him. And we all know that. But I'm saying this out loud because they're really basic questions that need to be asked at many fronts when we talk about this article that are in clear view, and I think that sometimes the media can twist words and speak about things to make it seem like it's something else. But we really need to ask, how was this person who it was a showbiz like reporter turning to GB News or working for the Sun or whatever, like getting this much money suddenly? Who was
Mm.
supporting him, and going back just a little, and I'm going to digress just a tad, if I may. Please feel
Go
free to
ahead.
jump in, but I want to go back a little bit because we're starting off in, as you said, August of 2019. We know that later that year, in November 2019, was the time when Harry and Meghan had escaped, and I use the word escape, to Canada. It was a secluded location, not accessible by plane or boat, as noted by Harry in Spare. Approximately 6 weeks later, on my estimate, that would have put them in what, mid to late December of 2019. The Daily Mail had printed their addresses,
Hmm.
right? This was supposed to be a very low key getaway. No one was supposed to know about this. So in Spare, in part 3, Captain of My Soul, which is the last section, chapter 72, page 375, if any of you guys want to pull that up at home, Harry
Please,
mentions
please pull out your Bibles.
Harry mentions in a conversation that he had with his father in the presence of the WASP. Queen Elizabeth at the time had already given approval for the request for Harry and Meghan to transition. His father, King Charles, had told him to put the request in writing, right? And within a
Oh,
few
is it
days,
is it me that can't hear light side,
uh-oh,
or is the light side gone out?
me, can you hear me? I can hear you, Anne. Let me
Can you hear
type.
me? Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I think it's me going out. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. If you guys can hear me, put a thumbs up in the chat so she knows. And then I will just, if she can't hear me, I'll let. Okay, perfect. I'll let her know when I stop talking.
No, no,
Um,
no. Carry on. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
okay, perfect, perfect. So his father, King Charles, had told him to put the request in writing, and within a few days, this information again was over the press. By the end of December, discussions happened again about their transition to Canada. In the conversation with King Charles, Harry was told once more to put the request in writing, which he had initially refused for obvious reasons, right? Because this had already leaked before. He wasn't trying to have this happen again. And what did
Mhm.
Charles say to him? And this is quoting from Spare. Well, I can't help you if you don't put it in writing, darling boy. These things have to go through government. Around January 2020, Harry conceded and sent watermark letters, all private and confidential. And I'd have to say, like, he did his due diligence in making sure that things were airtight. There was nothing that he did that was wrong because he was trying to keep this private. There was a period where they had refused to talk to Harry, and I say they because initially it was King Charles, and then he couldn't get in touch with his grandmother, right? And then there was a request from King Charles saying, "We want you to come back as soon as possible. We need to have discussions about this." He said he wasn't able to meet prior to the end of January. Now, there's a time restraint going on, right? They're running against the clock because the fear is that the papers are going to get this information, it's going to be leaked. So the sooner they can be at the forefront at releasing this, the better off they'll be. Charles makes sure he gives him a stern warning, and he says, "You'll be disobeying orders from the monarch and myself if you persist in this course of action before we have a chance to sit down." We all know now that this is hypocrisy because they have been planning and plotting behind the scenes and already putting things into place before any of this happened. And to me, this sounded more of a threat than anything else. I don't
Mhm.
think, based on how, and I could be wrong, Anne, but based on how we may know a little bit about how Charles communicates, but I feel as though this was probably a siphoned type of language coming from maybe courtiers, maybe his personal secretaries or whomever, and using that type of language to make sure that Harry knew kind of what was at stake at the time.
Yeah, like a threat, right? Because it takes it one step further when you say, oh, now the government is involved, and it's not just the choice of Charles or the courtiers. It adds more weight to it.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna run through this really quickly and I'll let you continue. So really quickly, we're in January, right? January 3rd rolls around. Harry meets and talks to his grandmother, or tries to meet and talk with her. She's suddenly busy. Shortly after that, Harry receives a notice that the Sun was about to publish information. And this goes back to some of the articles that Anne posted a little bit on screen, timeline wise, because it was around this time that things kind of exploded and stuff was released before they had actually had a chance to sit down and talk about how they were going to go through and release a statement before the public got wind of it. Um, the story was being run by none other than the sad little man, the lead reporter that was
Yeah.
on the article, right? And the
Yeah.
timeline for this publication, coincidentally, after cross checking, was noted to be January 7th, but the next update of January 9th. On January 7th, after that notice of, I believe it was Megxit that was released in the Sun, after that was released, I think at that point, Harry was just like, we don't have time. We need to kind of tighten this up, and we're not going to get in front of Wooten's release of his article. So let's see if we can just finish up our statement and get it pushed out. That same day at around 6 p.m. that night, Harry and his team completed the draft. As he stated in Spare, and notifications were sent to Queen Elizabeth II, King Charles, and William's people. And the person that made a comment in that book, and I'm realizing that with Harry, he puts little things in the book, but they're meant for us to kind of think about what else could this mean. This person actually replied and said, "This is going to go nuclear," and I wonder who at that point he was talking about. My guess was Jason Off, but I don't really know. But yeah, so it just seems as though they really had an issue with him trying to get in front of all of this because they already set their tone for what they wanted to have happen. And as you know, and as you're going into now, they're starting to give him the options that he now has, and how what Meghan now has to decide whether they want to come back and stay in the enclave and the protective tent of the royal family and carry on as if nothing has happened, or all or nothing. You go out, we don't give you any security, we don't do anything, we strip you of X, Y, and Z. Although we now know that there's a conversation for a 1 year transition period where that should not have happened. I'm going to hand it over to you. Looks like Anne's sound has gone out again. I'm going to keep talking until she comes back on. Um, so I want to just remind you guys really quickly about going back to like these options that were given to Harry at the time. Um, in Spare, Harry really stressed on three things, right? Three options. All in, they don't leave and go back to normal, whatever that means, because we all know that stuff was not okay. Harry and Meghan wanted the half in, half out, which was partially in the UK and then elsewhere, still kind of holding some responsibilities. And then the third option, which was lose everything, as I mentioned earlier, we now know that they really were pushing him towards one option, which is option 5 for any choice that he would have picked. So in case he decided or they decided they don't want to come back, the only thing that they could do was to corner him and say, well, your only option is 5. Because what they really wanted Harry to say was no, we change our minds and we'll come back. And that did not happen, as we know. Um, an official agreement was done at Sanhedrin on January 18th, 2020. And, it was that they would step back, not formally represent the queen, and the titles would be in abeyance, which would mean that there would be a pause. Okay, I see Anna's coming back. Let me finish this sentence really quickly. And so they weren't going to strip them completely, but we understand now that at the time they were really considering of completely taking everything from them. And I'm going to hand it over to you since you can hear now. Okay, seems like she's still having some audio issues. It's always the internet, isn't it, guys? If you guys don't mind me like continuing a little bit, I will. Oh, no sound gone again. Okay. Let us know. I'm sorry, Anne. Let us know if you want me to continue reading the article or if you want me to just kind of lay out the facts a little bit and bullet point some stuff. Yeah, absolutely, Joe Blogs. Joe Blogs said in the chat, irrespective of the options that were laid out, we already know what they really wanted, and that there was really one option.
Is my sound on?
I can hear you a little bit, Anne. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can everyone in the can everyone in the chat hear me? You should be able to hear me now. Light side, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. They can hear you, Anne. I see some chats
Okay.
coming in saying, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And try and fix this. Right, let's carry on. So where were we? And thank you so much, Lightside, for all of those details and keeping it going. Okay, so it goes on to say, where were we? We were at Christian Jones being paid about £4,000 per Murdoch's son. That's 2019, allegedly for articles related to Sussexes, and those would be some of the articles on the screen. Now, it said it is understood that the professional this admits to receiving the, but has claimed they were for other stories about a reality television star with similar name to the Duchess of Sussex. Jones has always denied being the source of any unauthorized information about the Sussexes getting to the press. It details a written summary that Prince Harry and Prince Charles in December of 2019 to move his family to North America, and Lightside detailed some of that. In his best-selling book Spare, the Duke of Sussex said Wooten's information had included a telling detail about an offer to relinquish their titles. There was only one document on earth in which the detail was mentioned. My private and confidential letter to my father, he writes. So, how did that information get to Dan Whatnot? To which a shockingly damning small number of people had access. We hadn't mentioned it even to our closest friends. Byline Times can reveal how the story, so-called Megxit, was published the same day the Sussexes were planning their own announcement. It promptly, it prompted a constitutional crisis. And of course, the way that the media tried to paint it was if, Harry and Meghan blindsided the Queen, which was, of course, was never true. And then it goes on to say, too well placed. Okay. So in the book in which Wooten is referred to as a sad little man, Prince Harry revealed how a further meeting set up by the Queen was blocked by palace staff and how she had already signed off on a previous plan for her grandson and Meghan to move in part to South Africa. So remember all those articles that came out and they were talking about, William and Kate wanted to um move Harry and Meghan to South Africa, and they might move to New Zealand, they might move, here, there, and the third. So there were clearly plans to just have them move somewhere far away from the UK. Okay, so it then goes on to say no one wanted that stuff to end up in the courtroom. And then it goes on to say that, there were payments of £3,000 in July of 2019 for a story about the Duchess of Sussex and her nannies. There was also a payment of £1,000 for a story about Archie's godparent. A second source of links to the royal households told Byline Times that Christian Jones' problem promised to drag the hidden dealings between the palaces and the press into the public domain. Or can I just say thank you so much to Coralita Simon and Church Nelly. I'm so sorry that you are not feeling well. Please send your prayers to Church Nelly. So then goes on to say, next part of the article. So that was deemed highly undesirable by the offices of Prince Charles and Prince William because there was always lots of horse trading going on with the editors and their correspondents to ensure favourable coverage and protection when scandals broke. No one wanted that stuff to end up in the courtroom. Harry and Meghan were expendable, but the heirs and their wives were not. And this is just so scary because it was one thing to leak that they were in Canada, but to then leak their exact location, there was no point of that. And um even if at best they just wanted to scare Harry and Meghan into going back, they were still putting their lives at risk. Goes on to say, it sent a chill through Clarence House for the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall and Kensington Palace for the Duke and Duchess of and Kensington Palace, but the Sussexes, particularly Harry, were very keen to get to the bottom of it all. He wanted to know how their private information kept being spun into negative headlines in the biggest newspapers. He and Meghan had been stung very badly by the timing and manner of Wooten's reporting on their plans to live a part of the year abroad, which wasn't even a new idea, as the Queen had previously given their blessing for a move to South Africa, which hadn't worked out. And then detailed intelligence had come up to suggest Wooten was paying the partner of a Kensington Palace official who had a lot of access for stories. Harry seemed pretty determined to get to the bottom of it. Just on that move of them going to South Africa. Meghan mentioned, and it's the first time that we heard about it in the Archetypes podcast with Serena Williams, about a fire happening in Archie's room, and that happened in South Africa. And I don't know how a fire happens in the room of the child, someone in the line of succession of the royal family, and no one in the press pack talked about it at all. And yet they were very keen on them to go to South Africa. Another source explained the mechanics of the royal institution's competing media strategies. You need to understand the competition that is constantly in play between offices of the senior members of the royal family. Well, this is something that, Harry has put out there, so it's really just confirmation of what Harry said. Charles and Camilla are obviously at the top of the tree and were even when the Queen was alive, William and Kate next. Anything that threatens the hierarchy or the public perception of it is a problem to be dealt with. The problem here is that the way that they were dealing with that was just making the situation even worse. Because the thing is, despite the absolute horror and vitriol of the smear campaign, the flip side of it is that they've made Harry and Meghan the most talked about people on the planet. So it's like, as long as people are talking about you. And now that the smear campaign is starting to be exposed, you've now made them the most talked about people on the planet and exposed yourself and the agenda.
Yeah. You said, yes, everything that you just said. I was listening. I'm like, I know she's going to get to it. 100%. Like, if you think about this, part of the reason why they wanted to keep them there was so they can control them, right? We all know this. Like, this is not news for some of us.
Yeah.
But what happened was they weren't successful in forcing them to come back. They left for the United States. they're still thriving, even more so than in the article. They made a point saying that the truth of the matter is that Harry and Meghan are more popular, more sought after than Charles and Camilla, or Kate and William. And I would change that and say that Harry and Meghan are more sought after and more popular than Charles, Camilla, William, and Kate combined.
Mm. Sorry, can you say that last bit again, light side?
I was just saying that I would restate that line in Byline Times and say instead that Harry and Meghan are more popular than Charles, Camilla, William, and Kate
And Kate
combined.
combined.
There's no
Yes,
either
yes,
or. All of them
yes.
together can't compete with Harry and Meghan.
Of course, and this was the same problem when Diana was alive with Charles, right? She just eclipsed the whole institution.
Exactly. And that's the problem. And we talk about it. I feel like we're going in circles because we know this, but the deviousness, someone said this in the chat, the deviousness of what they were trying to do to stifle their voices and the image
Mm.
that they had by bringing them back to punishment and harassment and mental abuse, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to trying to work with them and releasing them because they're also terrified that they may outshine them.
Mhm.
That is pure wickedness. That's just is evil, because you're saying that you really want to destroy these people.
Yes, absolutely. All right. On to thank you for that light side. So on to the next part, shifting alliances. So this is where it gets quite interesting about Wooten. Despite not holding a formal remit from the Sun to cover royal matters, Wooten, who was the newspaper's executive editor for show business and television coverage until he departed in 2021 to become the star presenter for GB News, started taking an increasing interest in royal stories in 2018. On the 13th of March 2019, Wooten published an article in The Sun about an alleged falling out between Prince William and Kate and the matroness of Cholmondeley, David Rock Savage, um, Rose Hanbury, and her husband, David Rock Savage, whom the paper dubbed Kate's rural rival. We'll remember that article. For reasons that are not clear, the article was subsequently removed from the Sun's website, which remained widely reported elsewhere. A former friend of Wooten's told Byline Times that the journalist's allegiance appeared to quickly shift from one prince to the other. Dan hated Prince William until around May 2019, they said. Behind closed doors, he didn't have a good word for him. He was always talking about his attitude. But Dan never criticized Harry, really. He never seemed to have much interest at all. Then, suddenly, in the summer of 2019, he switched. Basically, he was hating on Harry and Meghan. He had previously been obsessed with Prince William, and then he switched to the Sussexes. Byline Times put a series of detailed questions to a lawyer for the royal family, a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess, Dan Wooten, Christian Jones' partner, and Simon Case. Um, okay, so yeah, it's very interesting the way in which Dan Wooten just switched. And I
And
always said that sorry, like so I'll let you jump in a sec. I always said that there was something about the way Dan Wooten goes after Harry and Meghan that this isn't just about, talking about Harry and Meghan gets us clicks and views and so it makes me money. I always said that there was something even more sinister and dark about the way Dan Wooten went after Harry and Meghan. It was like this kind of seething hatred, like somebody was egging him on. Go on, light side.
yeah, and so what changed in the calculus? He switched from William. He didn't like William because
Mm,
there are commentaries that said that he just didn't take a liking to him. He had issues with him. Um, and he initially, going back to 2018, he started taking interest in royal stories. That's how they mentioned it. What happened in 2018 was Harry and Meghan's wedding officially. you could argue that initially he may have wanted to switch sides because people had more interest in Harry and Meghan. But as you said, it seemed to be more nefarious in the sense that there's this deep seated like hate or disgust or just drive for him to really dismantle their marriage. And the only thing I can think of is if he didn't have issues with Harry before and never spoken badly about him, what's different? Meghan is now in the picture. And
Yeah,
I still don't understand why, because as we know, his preference is not someone like her. So I don't really understand why that would have changed anything. You know, yeah, just thinking out loud.
good thought. So it goes on to the next part. The truth about Megxit in plain sight. The picture the Palace probe missed. Mind you, just after the news stories about Dan Wooten broke, all of a sudden his showbiz and PR friends started deleting pictures from their Instagram pages. So in 2020, Simon Case, today the embattled head of the British Civil Service, was tasked to investigate payments from Dan Wooten and the Sun to the partner of a royal press officer, allegedly for information about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. He found there was no evidence of wrongdoing, that the three were not friends. Byline Times has found new evidence. And of course, Simon Case wouldn't find any evidence because, you know, um, he then went on to become William and Kate's press secretary, and he's the one that orchestrated that ridiculous PR stunt where they had empty planes come and pick up William and Kate to make it look like they flew on commercial airlines. So the article goes on to say, it's the friendship Prince William's former right-hand man Simon Case concluded simply didn't exist. And yet there are one-time Royal Press Secretary, here are one-time Royal Press Secretary Christian Jones and his publicist partner huddling together for an intimate celebratory photograph with Cash Philippe's journalist Dan Wooten. The occasion was Wooten's 35th birthday party in March 2018. The location was the private terrace of a 1,600 a night suite at London's exclusive hotel, The Ned. The guests were 20 incredible friends, in Wooten's own words, handpicked to enjoy his extensive party. The issue is that it was a friendship that, when legal documents named Christian Jones, later named Christian Jones, he flatly denied, none of which could have seemed possible as Jones and his partner toasted the birthday boy, just a few days from winning a third British Press Award for Showbiz Reporter of the Year, and 5 years before he was unmasked as a serial catfish targeting young celebrities and colleagues for images. So it goes on to say, one of the party's attendees told Byline Times that there was no expense spared and everyone invited was part of Dan's special group of friends. Dan hired a private dining room and laid on a set menu with 3 options for each course. It was champagne and cocktails, whatever you wanted, just 28, and then a few more turned up to celebrate Dan upstairs on his terrace before heading to a club in Shoreditch. It was lavish, there was no expense spared. Um, the apparent closeness, as illustrated by the photo Dan uploaded on Instagram and captioned with 3 hearts on the 11th of March 2018, presented a problem, however, for Jones and his long-term publicist partner. For after Jones took the job of Deputy Communications Secretary to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge in December 2018, Wooten paid the publicist for stories which, according to a whistleblower account, led to a secretive internal investigation at the Sun newspaper, which feared being sucked into a leak scandal just a few years after some of its journalists were prosecuted over payments to public officials. The Sun has never confirmed anything on the record, but Byline Times, the sister website to this newspaper, revealed in June 2020 how lawyers for the Duke of Sussex, armed with credible information originating from inside the Sun publisher, were threatening to sue the tabloid over the publication of stories by Dan Wooten and negatively spun against the Sussexes. They were published in June 2019. Okay, so it goes on to talk about the different articles that were published. and the operation that Scotland Yard did to look into murder. Sorry, I'm trying to like skim through it to get to the meats and bones. Sorry, doll. You can obviously like go and read it in full yourself. Um, let's just get to the meat and bones of it. Okay, so the newspaper can reveal that although, when formally questioned by Simon Case, who is today the head of the British Civil Service and facing tough questions at the COVID inquiry, um, Jones admitted to knowing Wooten and dealing with him on a professional basis. He strongly denied that either he or his partner were close friends with the journalist. Well, the picture would tell us otherwise. There we go. Quite a long and involved process resulted from Prince Harry's lawyers sending a letter before action to the Sun. One source said, of course, Christian had to be questioned by his bosses about it. He said that yes, he had known Dan for a while, but that he did not know him very well, and that Prince William's courtiers who appointed him didn't have a problem with it. They didn't have a problem with him knowing Dan. Christian also told them that his partner had indeed been paid by the Sun at the time and stated in the whistleblower emails and for the amounts described, but that the money related to stories about clients his partner represented in their work as a publicist had nothing to do with Prince Harry and Meghan. One of his partner's clients supposedly had the same name as the Duchess of Sussex. There was the suggestion that this was the reason for some of the money paid and that the timing was just a fluke. Really? Really? Okay. Let's see. It was true that Dan knew Jones, his partner, very well. At the time, they were quite a young, they were quite a young publicist who had worked for a couple of London agencies and were keen to get on in their career. Dan knew this and made a point of including the publicist in his group, right? So you see how targeted he was with who he went after. Beyond just seeing them at the usual premieres and television events where publicists and journalists went to rub shoulders. For the publicist, knowing Dan was undeniably useful professionally, Dan had a hell of a lot of power with the Murdoch press, and the publicist sometimes had clients who either wanted to be in those papers or to be kept out of them. So he could use his position to do deals. Or to promote you, right? So either I can promote you, I can destroy you, or you give me something and I can hide something for you. They enjoyed the benefits of knowing Dan. Sometimes they got to use the Sun's box at the O2 for gigs. They were often around each other socially and in the West End. Okay, so it goes on to talk a little bit more about Dan's closeness with Jones. And then more about articles that were posted. Jones's principal job was to handle media matters for the Cambridges, his actual employees, with a dual role to look after the Sussexes. But a few weeks into his new appointment, Jones himself became the story. On the 23rd of January, The Sun published photos of Jones out in London's Notting Hill with the Duchess of Sussex under the headline, What a Hottie. So those would be these photos right here, alongside paparazzi pictures snatched after a low-key work lunch with Meghan, who at the time was pregnant with Archie. So he definitely leaked. All right. I think we can probably skim through a little bit more. Do you know what I'm gonna do, guys? Because this is very long and the internet is being a bit funny. I'm actually gonna do a part two. Okay, I'm gonna do a part two. We will go into this tomorrow. Emails behind the Cash for Leaks affair, and we will carry on, and we will also look at this as well. So monetizing Harry and Meghan, hate the need for truth on the need for a truth algorithm. We'll look into that tomorrow because that's going to be like a whole other hour. But my goodness, you know, and I think what blows my mind more than anything is that you know full well that this is just the surface level. There is something bubbling under the surface. And what is it about Christian Jones? What is it that Christian Jones knows that say the rest of the press pack don't know, that they so desperately needed to protect him? And then when you add in, Wooten being part of this whole cycle. So we'll get into a little bit more of this tomorrow. And now that I've actually read that in full, this is the first time I'm reading that in full. I've digested a little bit more, and I'll come back with more commentary tomorrow. And then I'll also take some calls so that you can all give your 2 cents as well. But we're going like over an hour, and I don't want to make the podcast too long. Lightside, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, just really quickly, I knew this was gonna be really long after I read this article. There's definitely a lot to digest, but just really quickly on the Simon Case thing. So Simon Case was involved in the investigation on the royal family side. Um, in the book, he was nicknamed the Fly by Harry, but I want to also say that he has a connection to press secretary Jason Knopf, right? In October,
Yes. Oh
right?
gosh, we've even
Yeah.
forgotten about Jason.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So there's a tight ship running. These people are very much interwoven, and I'm not going to get deep into this right now because, as you said, it's getting really long. I just want to make a teeny tiny comment, and I think Elaine pointed out to this because I just saw it this morning, was that ITV had did a small coverage of the byline
Yeah.
times, information, and I'm just going to say this really quickly, that even though they talked about stuff, I want you to understand the language that they're using, because the narrator had said something to the effect like Harry claimed that he was suddenly cut off, or that the support was suddenly taken away. Harry never used that language when he was talking on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Suddenly is a word that is used to describe something that abruptly happens that you had no idea was coming. And I know Harry and Meghan, being given the options that they were given, obviously would have thought that maybe there was a chance. The difference is Harry probably didn't actually think that his dad would go as far as he did. The error in his assumption was that he had trusted his father. He had trusted that father-son relationship that he felt he had with Charles. And from someone who himself, had two young sons, William and Harry, at some point. So he should know what it's like to want to protect a child and your lineage. Surely he wouldn't take away the one and only thing that he had to protect his family. But Charles, being the person who he is, proved Harry wrong. So just really quick note to just understand that even though they're presenting this, these reporters or correspondents are still leaning towards the royal family side, claiming that Harry knew. That's not the point. The point isn't that Harry knew that it was going to be taken away from him. The point is that it is still wrong. The royal family is still on the wrong side. Charles should not have done what he did, and that's the end of the story.
Okay, like that. I'm gonna assume that because you've put your mic off, you were finished there. But yeah, sorry, my sound did go again. But thank you so much for your commentary. Thank you everyone for your commentary in the comment section as well. Like almost over 1,100 of you in the chat. Thank you for being so patient with me today. I'm gonna try and get this internet issue fixed. Yeah, so much more that I could say, but I think it's just time to give it a sleep and digest everything, and then we'll come back tomorrow. We will come back tomorrow for part 2. I do believe that there is a lot more to come. I think those of us that have been in this space for a long time and can read between the lines, you can probably guess, what else is bubbling underneath the surface. And I really do think that something is coming, and it's not even just like an alleged affair or anything like that. I think it's gonna be a lot more explosive um than anyone could have ever imagined. All right, and with that, wishing you all a lovely day. Thank you so much for being patient with me, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for part 2 of this. All right, ciao everyone, and thank you everyone for your donations. Ciao.
If you would keep me waiting, I would wait a lifetime. In tricky situations, I will be a lifeline. Nobody's meant to be fighting alone. That's why I'm taking you home. I never felt something like this before, no. Keep coming back for your time after time. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but I know I'll never leave you behind, no. Baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. 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 Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. Ocean in between us, still I feel your heartbeat. There's something about you, baby, that makes me feel complete. Nobody's meant to be fighting alone. That's why I'm taking you home. I never felt something like this before, no. Keep coming back for your time after time. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but I know I'll never leave you behind, no. Baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. When you feel like falling, I'll be there to prove, yeah, that baby, I got you. No matter the distance, no matter the route, yeah, baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. And the world is going wild when they come for you. And the river's running dry when it all falls through. Don't you worry about a thing, baby, I got you. You. Yeah, baby, I got you.
Hello, my royal diamonds. Thank you so much for tuning into the Duchess of Success podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and comment on the video to help the algorithm find us. It is my pleasure to bring you all of the royal tea, honey. And if you would like to donate to the channel, please check out the links in the description box. All of your donations help to keep the channel running. Thank you for your support, and remember, you don't need a crown to be royal. We are all queens.